The recent loss of separation event between a Delta A330 and a United 737 at Phoenix's Sky Harbor Airport back on the 11th of January is a great reminder for all of us who fly the line just how careful we got to be in dealing with these visual approaches to parallel runways, and is a great refresher of the TCAS traffic collision avoidance systems, resolution advisories, and how to properly fly them. Let's check it out. My name's Juan Brown, you're watching the BLANCOLIRIO channel, and today, with permission from Victor at VAS Aviation, we're going to use his YouTube video to explain this situation, and I strongly recommend that you help support Victor on Patreon, as Victor has a lot of time and expense in creating these detailed graphics that help explain these situations so well to the rest of us in the aviation community. This is the Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport. The Delta Airlines jet is coming in from the north and is going to do a visual approach to runway 8, this large runway here. The United Airlines jet is already on final and already cleared for a visual approach to runway 7 right down here. These two parallel runways are on opposite sides of the airport from each other and are separated by a distance of over 4,300 feet. More on that in a minute when we look into the regulations. So at first, we'll just run through this without interruption, about 2 minutes worth of video, just to show you how quick these things can develop. The two aircraft that are in conflict is the United 737, shown down here, 1724, coming in from San Francisco with 123 passengers. Again, already cleared the visual approach for runway 7 right and on the straight-in final. And here we have the Delta Airlines 1070, the A330, with 245 passengers coming in from Detroit, who's going to make a left base entry to runway 8. And as you look at Victor's graphics here, you see the aircraft call sign, the altitude. Here's Delta at 5,400 feet, and then the type of aircraft here. Same thing with United, the call sign, the altitude 6,200 feet, and the type of aircraft. Now, United will remain above Delta the entire time. They'll get as close together, stacked on top of each other, with a difference of altitude of just 500 feet. And the big distraction is going to be a UPS flight coming in from the north up here.
Delta 1070 Heavy, turn left heading 170, vectors base, and do not exceed 190 knots.
190 knots, and give me the heading again.
170.
170 on the heading, and 190 knots for Delta 1070 Heavy.
Thank you.
Phoenix Road, good morning, Kion 3101, heading 260, 84, descending 7,000, expecting 8.
QM 3101, Phoenix Approach, welcome. And you are following a heavy Airbus 330 in your 12 o'clock, 6 miles, turning base now for runway 8.
We got that traffic in sight, Kion 3101.
QM 3101, roger, plan to follow that traffic, caution wake turbulence, descend at your discretion, maintain 4,000.
By discretion to 4,000, we'll follow that traffic, Kion 3101.
QM 3101, just plan to follow, don't follow them quite yet.
Yeah, we will plan to follow 3101.
Thank you.
Approach TCAS 9872's level 8,000 with Delta.
Southwest 2657, fly present heading, vectors to final, descend to maintain 5,000.
Present heading down to 5,000, Southwest 2657.
UBS 9872 Heavy, Phoenix Approach, welcome, expect the visual approach to runway 7 right now, fly present heading, and reduce speed to 190.
Okay, yeah, we just changed it to runway 8 because it's just kind of taking too long. Is there any chance we can just do 8 now?
UPS 9872 Heavy, yes. Reduce speed to 170 then, and you can still fly present heading, maintain 8,000. I'll lower for you shortly.
All right, slow to 170, present heading 8,000, UPS 9872 Heavy.
1070 Heavy, turn left heading 100, clear visual approach runway 8.
Left to 100, we do have runway 8 in sight. Cleared.
United 1724 responding.
And Delta 1070 is responding to a TCAS RA.
1070 Heavy. Roger. UBS 1724, thank you. Let me know when you are done and the traffic is beneath you. A heavy heavy Airbus.
United 1724 is responding to a TA.
United 1724, roger. Do you want to be resequenced?
Hey, Param, United 1724.
United 1724, climb and maintain 5,000 to right heading 180.
5,000, right turn 180, United 1724.
What would you like Delta 1070 to do?
Sequence.
What would you like Delta 1070 to do?
I'm sorry, I don't understand that.
Okay, do you want us still on this approach?
Delta 1070 Heavy, if you would like to proceed inbound for this visual to runway 8, you can, or I can resequence you.
Let's resequence.
Keyline 3101, turn left heading 180 vectors base.
Left turn 180, 3101.
Okay, pretty self-explanatory. Let's go through it step by step. The weather is clear in a million.
Delta 1070 Heavy, descend to maintain 4,000.
Descend to maintain 4,000 for Delta 1070 Heavy.
Right here,
United
Delta.
1724, Sky Harbor 1 o'clock to 2 miles.
Inside 1724.
United 1724, thank you. Clear visual approach runway 7 right.
Good visual 7 right, United 1724.
Okay, there's the first word we get that United is cleared the visual for 7 right.
Delta 1070 Heavy, turn left heading 170 vectors base and do not exceed 190 knots.
190 knots, and give me the heading again.
170.
170 on the heading, and 190 knots for Delta 1070 Heavy.
Thank you.
So that's a left turn to a base, a 90-degree base entry to the runway 8 final, 190 knots, 180 knots prior to the marker. That's very common speeds to keep the aircraft evenly spaced.
Phoenix Road, good morning, Keyline 3101, heading 260, 84 descending 7,000, expecting 8.
Keyline 3101, Phoenix Approach, welcome. And you are following a heavy heavy Airbus 330 in your 12 o'clock, 6 miles, turning base now for runway 8.
We got that traffic in sight, Keyline 3101.
Keyline 3101, roger, plan to follow that traffic, caution wake turbulence, descend at your discretion, maintain 4,000.
By discretion to 4,000, we'll follow that traffic, Keyline 3101.
Keyline 3101, just plan to follow, don't follow them quite yet.
Yeah, we will plan to follow 3101.
So that's Keyline, that's that charter outfit following the Delta jet, looking out for the wake turbulence from the A330. Now the big distraction coming into play here is going to be this UPS flight up here.
Yeah.
Approach UPS 9872 is level 8000 with Delta.
Southwest 2657, fly present heading vectors to final, descend to maintain 5,000.
Present heading down to 5,000, Southwest 2657.
So she's working about 5 different aircraft simultaneously, which is not unusual. We don't know how far along the controller is in her shift. Fatigue may be an issue in this situation on behalf of the controller.
BS 9872 Heavy, Phoenix Approach, welcome. Expect the visual approach to runway 7 right now. Fly present heading and reduce speed to 190.
So she's given the Delta a left turn, the 90-degree turn to the final here, and the Delta is rapidly approaching the final approach course, and she's going to get all wrapped up with the conversation here with the UPS jet when the real problem or conflict is down here.
Okay, yeah, we just changed it to runway 8 because it's just kind of taking too long. Is there any chance we can just do 8 now?
UPS 9872 Heavy, yes. Reduce speed to 170 then, and you can still fly present heading, maintain 8,000. I'll lower for you shortly.
All right.
So she's still talking to the UPS jet, and Delta has not been cleared yet for the visual approach, and he's on a 90-degree heading to final, and he needs to be on a dog leg heading or a 30-degree heading to final at this point.
All right, slow to 170, present heading 8000, UPS 9872 Heavy.
1070 Heavy, turn left heading 1.
Okay, now she's giving Delta the clearance a little bit late to that left turn 100 to get him a 30-degree dog leg entry to the final here, but he's going to grossly overshoot final here at 190 knots and put him right underneath the United jet.
00, clear visual approach runway 8.
Left to 100, we do have runway 8 in sight, cleared.
United 1724, respond.
And Delta 1070 is responding.
Okay, so there goes the TCAS resolution advisory. You could hear it over the speaker on the Delta jet to descend. So if you check out these two altitudes, Delta is at 3,900 feet, United is at 4,400 feet. The separation gets maybe 400 to 500 feet vertically, but they're still separated about a mile at this point, a little over a mile. But the Delta jet has been forced to overshoot his turn. He should be turning to parallel here, but instead of the late turn, because he didn't have his clearance for his visual approach yet, that put him right underneath the United jet.
To a TARA
1070 Heavy. Roger. UBS 1724, thank you. Let me know when you are done.
Now, the controller's beginning to get a bit frazzled. This is United 1724. She called him UPS because she's been dealing with that UPS aircraft, the very aircraft that caused the distraction in the first place.
And the traffic is beneath you, a Heavy Heavy Airbus.
United 1724 is responding to TA.
United 1724, Roger. Do you want to be resequenced?
Hey, Fairham, United 1724.
United 1724, climb and maintain 5,000 to right heading 180.
And that's the best call on behalf of the crews, is to get resequenced, because their final approach now is unstable. They have an unstable, or they've created an unstable approach at this point in responding to these TAs. And both crews responded correctly to these TCAS resolution advisories. More on that in a minute.
5,000, right turn 180, United 1724. What would you like Delta 1070 to do?
Sequence.
What would you like Delta 1070 to do?
I'm sorry, I don't understand that.
Okay, do you want us still on this approach?
Delta 1070 Heavy, if you would like to proceed inbound for this visual to runway 8, you can, or I can resequence you.
Let's resequence.
QM 3101, turn left heading 180.
Good call. So they're going to resequence both of them. Meanwhile, she's got to continue to work the rest of the aircraft. She's going to break these aircraft out of the pattern and resequence them back in for landing. Meanwhile, a aviation hobbyist, they called him on the news, Justin Giddens, was watching this as he was walking around, and he knows the flight paths or the patterns here at Sky Harbor very well, and he saw this whole thing develop, and he caught a little bit of video of this TCAS resolution advisory while it was happening. Quick review of TCAS, Traffic Collision Avoidance System, that life-saving technology that will give pilots an RA. If two aircraft get too close together, TCAS will give you a resolution advisory in a vertical mode and create vertical separation between two aircraft. The TCAS equipment on board the aircraft uses the transponders, interrogates the transponders of the two aircraft to come up with this vertical resolution advisory, as we heard on the videotape there. Descend on behalf of the Delta Airlines jet, as he was below the United Airlines jet. So the TCAS automatically figured out the difference in altitude, and the best course of action was for Delta to descend and United to climb, and give them the vertical separation that they needed. And that separation, or that advisory, is displayed through two things. One, the vertical speed indicator. It gives you a green arc of the vertical speed indicator to climb to, and on the horizontal situation indicator, it will also oftentimes, depending on which equipment you have, display a red area like this one here to not climb or descend into, and a green area to head towards. There's a great example of a TCAS RA being flown here on YouTube at the Challenger Pilot YouTube channel, where he's on downwind to land, and a Piper comes and busts his altitude that the controller gave him and gets too close to the Challenger jet, and so the Challenger jet pilot has to do an avoidance maneuver to avoid the Piper aircraft. So he properly hand flies the aircraft, and that's what you got to do in one of these TCAS RAs. Is you got to disconnect the autopilot and smoothly hand fly the aircraft in conformance with the resolution advisory. In this case, he was advised to climb away from the traffic, and you can just barely make out the green arc in the VSI, vertical speed indicator, over here. And on his HSI, he doesn't have a green or red arc. The other important thing to note is that you're hand flying this thing. You're not messing with the autopilot. You got to disregard the flight director bars. You're going to climb and follow the resolution advisory, and you're going to do it by hand flying the aircraft. The pilot monitoring, or the pilot on the radios, advises ATC that you are flying in response to a resolution advisory. In other words, you're deviating from the altitude that you were assigned in order to avoid the collision, and then once clear of the collision, you resume your course and altitude. Or, like in this case, get directions on how to break out of the pattern and re-enter. Start all over again. And in this technical paper about TCAS by Kuchar and Drum, we learned back in 2002, I believe it was, in Germany, Yeah, the collision between the Boeing 757 DHL aircraft and a Russian passenger jet. A TCAS resolution advisory was created by the TCAS systems, but there was a conflicting order given by the air traffic controller, and the pilot of the Russian aircraft elected to not follow the TCAS resolution advisory, the automatic resolution advisory, and instead followed the conflicting air traffic controller's information and put both of these aircraft onto a deadly collision course. So if you get conflicting information from the air traffic controller that conflicts with your TCAS, you are to follow the TCAS information, as that is accurately following the two aircraft's individual transponders. Now, if we take a look at the rules in the ATC handbook, this is something pilots don't normally dive into, but this is the Bible for the air traffic controllers, and we look up visual approaches to multiple runways, and specifically visual approaches to parallel runways that are separated by 4,300 feet or more. When aircraft are approaching from opposite base legs, or one aircraft is turning final and the other aircraft is established on the extended centerline for the adjacent runway, the approved separation is provided until the aircraft are either assigned a heading or established on a direct course or fix or cleared on an RNAV instrument approach procedure, which will intercept the extended centerline of the runway at an angle not to exceed 30 degrees. So it's critical that the controller get that dogleg heading in there in time for the aircraft flying the visual approach to intercept the final approach course. So technically, because the Delta aircraft has not yet been cleared for the visual approach, he just can't start his own left turn to intercept final. He could make a heads-up call to the controller, hey, need a dogleg to final turn here, as she's getting all wrapped up in her work with the UPS aircraft to the north. But regardless, it's incumbent on all of us crew members to remain situationally aware of the situation as it is developing, that we know that we're approaching the final approach course, we're about to overshoot it, and we've got another aircraft right out here on the other runway that's going to become a conflict. So good job on behalf of the crew members for smoothly and correctly flying the TCAS resolution advisory and avoiding a greater problem. And this is a stark reminder to all of us out there flying the line of just how careful we got to be on these visual parallel runway approaches, especially with an ATC system that's heavily taxed and potentially fatigued. Thank you so much for your support of this channel, especially the folks over on Patreon that make this content possible. And please go over to Victor's Patreon and support him as well, as he puts in a lot of time, effort, energy, and expense in creating all of these graphics and creating the text of the dialogue at the bottom as well, as Victor's work along with the live ATC audio helps us all understand these aviation events as they happen. See you here.